Hello, I'm full Pelican and I'm not doing the voice this time. Sorry guys. Dated and poor references to Looney Tunes aside, this is another Wind Rabbit arena, which means that it's going to be the Mega Meme show yet again because Railgun continues to be the best way to get a high score in this arena. However, I will note that the introduction of weakness makes a big change. It does make your Railgun harder to charge, but I think the payoff and the increase in damage from weakness is gonna be worth it. Plus, physical is also really catching up to mages with the introduction of Ainu Mia. Plus, if you don't do it right, the boss does disadvantages mages a little more because on the 2nd and 7th turn, the boss will do a significant magic attack debuff, which is a tier 3 debuff, and a tier 2 physical attack debuff. However, you can just skip those debuffs with Snipe, so you shouldn't really have to worry about it. I will say the waves here are very chunky. There's one big rabbit and then 2 big rabbits. They both have a lot of hit points, about 15k, so they're kind of hard to take down, but with some good single target DPS, they shouldn't give you too much trouble, and it'll give you a chance to charge up Railgun. So even though physical is catching up, that's not to say that the mage team won't still be competitive. Christmas Wiz is still an incredible unit, and Halloween Union combos extremely well with her. And of course, you'll want Kazuma on this team, as the typed basic that mages have just goes super well with a weakness debuff, so King Kazuma returns. You will of course be running Mega Meme alongside. I think 3-star is still the way to go over the 4-star because of her shorter cooldowns, but that kind of depends. You can also try running ReZero Mega Meme, but I do think it's just not as good. Christmas Wiz, of course, will be the cornerstone of that team. Her gauge up works so well with Railgun, and of course she can slow the boss down. It's not as effective since you're pairing her with Snipe, but it's still an option, and it does also provide that tier 3 defense debuff on the boss, which is excellent at any point in time. And then there's Union. I think you could try running Ainu Mia alongside Christmas Wiz, but I honestly think you're going to be better off running Union, as she does still provide a tier 1 agility buff, and that tier 3 magic attack buff is just too strong to miss. The last slot is really flexible, but I put Komeko here. Her fire-typed ult does have the potential to deal a ton of damage, especially with Kazuma doing a weakness debuff on the boss, but you can swap her out for a number of other characters. On the physical side of things, the first part of the team will be identical. You're still going to be running Kazuma. Here he's going to benefit from some physical attack buffs off of Mia, but that Snipe debuff and his weakness debuff are just too good to pass up, even in a physical team. Naturally, alongside of that, you're going to be running Mega Meme and Railgun because it's really hard to beat that in Fire Arena for just the sheer amount of damage that the Railgun puts out. You could try and fish for crits with the second version of Explosion, but it's just way less consistent. While Ainu Mia doesn't provide any direct gauge up, I think a tier 2 agility buff gives enough extra actions to justify it and just overall increases your DPS, along with Mia blocking a debuff, so you don't have to worry about that. The last couple slots are fairly flexible, but I think Bell with his cooldown cut is going to be the adventurer that you want to come in, as more weakness uptime and more tier 2 agility buffs on the boss is just really hard to beat here. Iris in the last slot is probably a go-to, but there are a variety of other options, including running Wismus. As far as other adventures to run on this little adventure, I think Erica is actually a pretty decent option. Her ult 2 provides a 30% gauge up, and you could use her as a way to fuel a Railgun, although I don't think she's quite optimal with this setup. It still can work. Ainu Chris is also a pretty good welfare option. She does have that flexible ult that can provide an attack buff, as well as a tier 1 agility buff on a skill, and she can also do a defense down on the boss with one of her skills. Snow Mitsurugi is also great, especially if you're struggling to stay alive. His ultimate can heal you, although he only has a tier 1 agility buff versus Mia's tier 2 agility buff, which is clearly superior. Snowaru is also an alright option for a mage team, but I just don't think she's as good as some of the other options we have. And if you're a budget player, as always, you can run Eyes and Godclaw on this team, although I think they're far from optimal. They will still put out a great deal of damage and allow you to get a fairly decent score this arena. that's the video. Thanks for watching. I'll be doing a stream tomorrow where I take on the rabbit and of course do a few polls for Ninja Chris, although unfortunately we'll have to wait for next week to show her off.